Hi all, very good morning. I'll quickly log in into my console. So in our last class, we learned about the management part of S3 bucket, and today we are going to look in at what is called a storage gateway and what is a snowball device. So we have a little bit of theory part in here on what is snowball and what is storage gateway. So first, let's get started with the what are the storage gateways. Okay, start talking about the storage gateways. Now, AWS Storage Gateway is a service that actually helps us to connect on-premise software appliance with a cloud-based storage to provide seamless and secure integration between the. How about others? Even others are having a problem over the audio. Is it clear? Can you guys hear me now? Is audio clear? Shiva, can you hear me now? Rahul, can you hear me now? Okay. So we were discussing about the storage gateway. So storage gateway is basically a service that helps us to connect the on-premise software appliance with the cloud-based storage to provide seamless and secure integration between an organization's on-premises IT environment. So what happens is I'm showing up a screen which is having a storage gateway slide. Are you all guys able to see that? We can see it now. Okay. So storage gateway is basically a kind of software appliance which we are basically going to connect to our on-premises environment. Now let me give you a very good example in here. So this is my data center at my company, which is having a lot of data, and now actually I want to go ahead and send it across the AWS. So how do I do it? Specifically, we are trying to use software appliance like storage gateway, which is the red in color here, and that we are trying to attach it to our data center, and then using this software appliance we are going to send across the data to the AWS cloud. So however, we have got different types of storage gateways depending upon the use case. So we are going to learn about what are the different types of storage gateways on what kind of use we would be doing through. So basically, the storage gateway is a software appliance that gets connected onto the side of your data center and helps us to communicate with the AWS cloud. Basically, we have three different types of gateways. One of them is file gateway, second is volumes gateway, third is tape gateway.
Bhavan, it's Ganesh here.
Yeah,
Actually,
Ganesh.
actually, the storage gateway, it will be a physical device or say a software.
Software appliance, software.
Okay. So where we need to install it? Install it on the.
Install it in the on-premises in any one of the servers or machines in the existing company's server.
Okay. Any one server, or we have to install in all the servers, storage devices.
It depends on how they have set up. So if they already have a see, usually companies will have their own private network, right? In which all the systems are interconnected. So that is how they say it is called to be a small cloud across in their companies itself.
Okay.
So usually it will be all interconnected. So from there we should be able to do it across.
Okay. Got it.
So usually there are three types of gateways. It is file gateway, volumes gateway, and the tape gateway. Now volumes gateway has got two different types, that is stored volumes and the cached volumes as well. When we talk about the file gateway, they work on the NFS protocol. Volumes gateway work on the iSCSI protocol, and the tape gateways basically are called as virtual tape libraries as well. So let's check out on what is called as file gateway. Here, what I'm trying to do is files are basically stored as objects in my S3 bucket, and they are accessed through a network file system mount point. So when we talk about the object-based storage, that is on the S3, right? So if you also have a lot of things which are like objects in your existing on-premises, and you want to get them transferred to the AWS cloud, then specifically we will look forward to use the file gateway, which actually helps us to transfer all the kinds of objects across from the on-premises to the AWS cloud. So basically we use NFS, that is network file system, as a mount point, and we start transferring the data. So ownership, permissions, timestamps are durably stored in the S3 in the user metadata of the object associated with the file. So we are not going to lose any kind of metadata. We will still have the same metadata in terms of who is going to be the owner of the file, what permissions did he have, and timestamps are durably stored. Once the objects are transferred to S3, they can be managed as a native S3 objects, and the bucket policies such as versioning, lifecycle management, and a cross-region replication apply directly to the objects stored in your bucket. So the moment I get them transferred to the S3, I'll be able to use them as a normal object on which I can actually apply the versioning, lifecycle rules, and the cross-region replication rules as well. So all the rules will be applicable as normal once the file is uploaded to the S3. So let's see how it actually happens. So I basically have application server on, and from this application server I would actually like to transfer out all the objects to the Amazon S3, right? Because it is object based service and I have all the objects to be transferred across. So I'm going to make use of S3 here. So I have an application server using the storage gateway here. I'm just setting up the NFS file system, and I'm going to connect to my AWS cloud either using the direct connect or the internet, and I'm going to get connected to my specific virtual private cloud if I have any in the Amazon, or I can directly get connected to the Amazon S3 here, right? So in S3 we are basically going to store all the objects, maybe in S3 standard or S3 IA or maybe the Glacier. So this is basically how I'm going to get connected from my on premises to the AWS cloud using the storage gateway appliance, in which we are using the first one, that is file gateway, which works on the NFS protocol. Now second one, when you talk about the volumes gateway, the volumes gateway is basically where I would like to transfer my volumes. As we all know, there are two different types of storages. One is object based storage, or second is block based storage. So in object based storage, it is only all the files. What if I also have some block based storages? Like I will have a lot of virtual servers on which a lot of information is stored across. So I want to actually also transfer those servers from the on premises to the AWS cloud, right? So specifically, whenever I want to transfer any block based devices, right? So operating systems, softwares which are already installed on the system, if I have to transfer them, specifically we take the image and then we'll be able to send those images to the AWS cloud, and using those images again we are going to spin it up. We are going to spin it up as a again server, right? So how are we going to deal with the volume gateways, right? So volume gateways basically work on the iSCSI protocol. Yeah, we'll come to that, guys. So volumes gateway basically work on the iSCSI protocol, which help us to transfer the images or snapshots that we call it as, or volumes can directly be sent across from one place to the other. So let's see what are the different types of volumes I have. We have one of them is which is the gateway stored volumes, and the second one we have is gateway cached volumes. So one is gateway stored, one is gateway cached. So we are going to look at what is gateway stored first. So in this case, in the gateway stored volumes, you can actually keep the entire data set on a site, which means I'm still using my complete on-premises data center as normal. But I'm going to use storage gateway in between as a software appliance, which is actually going to back up the data to the Amazon S3, right? So I'm going to use Amazon AWS cloud only as a backup solution in the gateway stored volumes. So I'm trying to store everything on my on premises itself, but only the part is I'm trying to create the backup to the S3. Gateway stored volumes provide durable and inexpensive offsite backups that you can recover locally or from the Amazon EC2. So let's see how this actually works. Now, in this case of the example, if you see, I have a lot of users who are trying to use their laptops or computers, and they are trying to interact with my application servers, which are there in my data center as shown here. Now, I have lots of storage devices as well, where the data is getting stored from these servers. So in between, I'm trying to introduce my gateway stored volume here. So this is our software appliance that we are trying to put in between. So what are we trying to do? So whatever data is actually coming in here, I'm trying to store everything inside my data center itself. But however, at the same time, I'm trying to also upload the same data onto the Amazon S3 as a snapshot, or maybe I can also directly put it across into the block devices directly. So I'm trying to use Amazon Cloud as a backup solution in this specific case. So all my data will still exist on the on-premises. Whenever the users are interacting, they are going to interact with the server which is in my data center itself. But I'm going to use AWS as a backup solution. So if something happens to my data center, I'm going to retrieve the data back from the AWS cloud. That is the first one, that is gateway stored volumes. Then we have a gateway cached volumes. So in this, what are we going to do? So specifically, as the name says, gateway cached, right? So only the most frequently accessed data is stored locally. So whatever data my company uses a lot, only that data will be stored inside the on-premise data center, and rest of the things will actually be stored on the AWS cloud. You don't have to go and buy out large SAN arrays for your office data center, so you can get a significant cost savings in this case. But if you lose the internet connectivity, you will not be able to access all of your data. Now let's see how this is working. So if you see in this case again, I have my users who are again trying to access the servers from their laptops or the computers, and then they are connected to my application server, and in between I have a gateway cached volume. And if you see the number of storage devices, they are considerably reduced from the last case. Here I have around 5 of them, but here I'm just trying to keep only 3 of them, which means if my users are going to access the data which is more frequently used, only that data I'll just keep it inside my data center. Rest of the data I'm going to keep it on my AWS cloud itself. So if they want to access something else, they have to retrieve the data from the cloud and they have to check it out. However, the in my existing data center, I'm just going to use a very few storage devices, and I'm going to keep only them which is most frequently used. Now a very good example for this would be a newspaper company. Now newspaper company actually produces a newspaper every day. Now if you see the history of any specific newspaper, they would have got a lot of data, because every day a newspaper comes out. Now where do they store all this information? And specifically, not all the newspapers are required to be stored in their existing data center, because they are not going to use it every day. So what they do, they specifically keep the data that is most frequently used in their data center, and rest of the data they are going to keep it on the Amazon AWS cloud in the form of storages, or in the form of maybe in the snapshots into the S3, or directly in the form of volumes onto the EBS volumes, that is elastic block store volumes. So you can choose any of those methods to keep the storage. But yes, so in terms of the newspaper company, the editors who are working in the company on the day-to-day articles specifically are always on their toes to get that updated. So that specific kind of data which is most frequently used in their data, that is being stored in their data center, and rest of the things we are trying to store it on the Amazon. So there is always a question that usually comes up in the AWS Solutions Architect Associate exam with the same scenario of the newspaper company, where they ask us what would be the ideal solution that you would actually choose across in terms of the storage gateways, whether you would like to go for the gateway stored volumes or the gateway cached volumes. So remember, if it is a gateway stored volumes, I am having complete data center in my company itself, and I am trying to use AWS cloud as a backup solution. But when we talk about the gateway cached volumes, in this I'm just trying to store the data that is most frequently accessed in my company, and rest of the data I'm going to keep it across in the AWS cloud. And finally, we have the virtual tape libraries. So before we go to virtual tape library, we have one question here which says, what is the difference between the internet gateway and the storage gateway? Now, when we talk about the internet gateway is basically a part of our VPC section, that is virtual private cloud, that we are going to learn in our upcoming sessions. What is virtual private cloud? How can we set up our own virtual private cloud? So in virtual private cloud, I will have to define which, like specifically we are going to create subnets that we call as public subnets or private subnets as such. So we are going to define which of them are going to be accessible. So inside a virtual private cloud, when we talk about it, it's basically private. However, inside the virtual private cloud itself, I'll have a way to get connected to the internet, and that is where I'll basically get use the internet gateway from my private cloud to get connected to the outside world. And in terms of storage gateways are basically something that we are learning at this moment, which is basically helping to connect the existing on-premise data center to the AWS cloud. Right, so this is just a dedicated connection between the only two things, like AWS data centers and our on-premises data center. But in terms of internet gateway, we are basically in terms of the internet gateway, we are basically trying to help the private cloud get access to the internet. Right, so there might be cases when you are actually trying to spin up something inside the, when you're trying to spin up some servers and you would like to download some packages or something as such, right, where you would like to go ahead and actually get the updates. So like if you want to install some softwares like Nginx or PHP or something else as such, so you may want to get connected from your private cloud to download them from a specific place. So there we would require an internet gateway. Yeah, and in terms of what is full form for the ISCSI basically stands for Internet Small Computer System Interface. Now, finally, the last part about gateway virtual tape gateway virtual tape libraries. Now, what is a virtual tape library? So there are a lot of companies who have been dealing with the magnetic data for a long time. So they do still have a lot of virtual tapes in which they have actually stored some of the data. Now you can actually have a limitless collection of the virtual tapes. Each virtual tape can be stored in the virtual tape library backed by either Amazon S3 or a virtual tape shelf backed by Amazon Glacier. So if you are trying to keep the data inside S3 bucket, it is going to be a part of virtual tape library. And if you are trying to store it in the Glacier, it is going to be stored in the virtual tape shelf. The virtual tape library exposes an industry standard ISCSI interface, which provides backup application with online access to the virtual tapes, supported by net backup, backup exec, Veeam, etc. So specifically, we will be able to also transfer the files which are in the form of magnetic tapes or the old, very old data that a lot of companies do still have. Of course, there are very few at this moment of time, but yes, they do have some data which they would still like to retain it in the form of tapes itself, and they would be specifically looking forward for this solution where they can actually transfer the data to the virtual tape libraries. And how do we retrieve the data and read it back? So we basically use the tools like net backup, backup exec, veeam, which are basically used for reading the data out of these tapes. So that was all about the storage gateways. So specifically we have three different types. One of them is file gateway, volumes gateway, and the virtual tape library. When we talk about the file gateway, it is specifically only for the data files, right? So if it is any object based storage, I'll straight away go ahead and use the file gateway, and I'm directly going to store it on the S3 itself. And when we talk about the volumes gateway, in the volumes gateway we have first gateway stored volumes and then the gateway cached volumes. So volumes gateway is going to work on iSCSI protocol, while the no, we are not going to do any labs on this. This is just information on what is a storage gateway and how do we use it across, how and what is the use case. So specifically, we do not have lab on this part of the section. Yeah, so when you talk about the volumes gateway basically work on the iSCSI protocol, and in terms of the first one, that is gateway stored volumes. So as the word itself says, stored, right? So I'm trying to store everything in my AWS data center, sorry, in everything in my on-premise data centers, and I'm trying to use AWS as a backup. And when I talk about the gateway cached volumes, I'm going to store only the most frequently accessed items onto my existing data center, and everything else will be as a part of the cloud. And finally, the gateway virtual tape library. It is basically used for the backup and uses the popular applications like NetBackup, Backup Exec, and Veeam in order to retrieve the data from those virtual tape libraries. So any questions here from any one of you on a storage gateway? Yeah. Any questions or queries from any one of you before we proceed to the next topic, that is snowball? Okay. So next part that we are going to learn is about the snowball. So before the snowball actually came into picture, there was something actually called as AWS import export. So specifically in terms of the storage gateway, we just need to have idea on how we can actually transfer the data to the AWS cloud in different ways. So that is where we are learning about the storage gateways. So first is you have to classify what kind of data you have, whether it is all object based storage or you also have a block based storage. So if you just have got object based storage, you can straight away think about the first option in our storage gateways, which works on the NFS protocol. And if you have got some servers and the softwares and their configurations, and then you're also using the block based devices, then think about the second option, that is gateway stored volumes or the gateway cached volumes. And if you have the magnetic tapes which are still old but you want to retain them, and then you can use the option of virtual tape libraries or the shelf. Now coming back to the snowball, import export disk. Now there was a service that used to exist long before, which was actually called as a import export disk. Now this has been deprecated, and on AWS console you will not be able to see it anymore anywhere. So what was AWS import export disk? Now usually there were companies who had got a lot of data and they wanted to actually transfer them to the AWS cloud. AWS cloud so that they can host the services on the AWS cloud and get started with it. But they had a lot of data. So how do we get started with it? Now we all know that the connection of internet in India has just improved over the last 1 or 2 years, but the AWS cloud is already there from 2006. So there were a lot of companies who wanted to transfer their data from the on-premises to the AWS cloud. So at that time, given the internet connection, it would have been really difficult even to transfer a 10 GB of file or even the 1 TB of complete file. So how would they proceed across? So that was where Amazon import export disk came into picture. So you can actually buy your own hard disk, install the data, completely transfer your data from the servers into those hard disks, and you have to ship those hard disks to the AWS data centers, and then you will be able to get the data on your Amazon AWS cloud, and you will be directly able to access it from either the S3 section or from the block based, that is EBS section. So we have two different sections in terms of the storage. One of them is for the S3, that is object based storage, and one of them is for the EBS, that is elastic block store. So once you send the data in the hard disks, you have to purchase your own hard disks from the market. You have to transfer the data into those hard disks, and then you have to ship back those hard disks to the nearest AWS cloud center, and they are going to transfer everything to your AWS account. Now, this used to be a little tricky situation because I have to buy my own hard disk, and sometimes I might not use the techniques of securing the data, that is specifically with the encryption, right? So if someone gets a hold of the hard disk, what happens to my data, right? So there were a lot of problems that people had with the import export disk, and specifically the large companies where they had really large amounts of data. So they were not sure whether they should opt for this import export disk as a solution. So that is when Amazon actually came up with a solution of the snowball. So what is a snowball? Snowball is basically something like this, which appears to be a rugged suitcase kind of device, which comes with a minimum storage option of 80 TB, that is 80 terabytes. So you can actually go ahead and order this snowball device from the AWS data center, and it is going to be shipped down to your location, and you can straight away go ahead and open up the snowball device. And when it is opened, it just looks something like this, in which you have the two wings, and you can actually open it up and you can get connected to your existing data center, and you can start transferring the data at very high speed into this snowball device. And once the data transfer is done, you can straight away ship this device back to Amazon data center, in which you would like to have the complete information. Like if you want to use a specific data center of Mumbai region in AWS, specifically you have to mention that I want to transfer all this data to the Mumbai, because it is the nearest data center that we have in the India. So that makes it easy. After that, I'll be able to transfer it from there to any other region. Wherever I want to transfer, I'll be able to do it later, right? So this is a snowball device, how it appears to be. Now, snowball is basically a petabyte scale data transport solution that uses secure appliances to transfer large amounts of data into and out of AWS. So as I just said, if you want to transfer a lot of data that is in your existing on-premise data center, which is to be sent to the AWS, then we would specifically prefer for this snowball device. We'll not be able to depend on internet, because internet will hardly be able to send across some data. Of course, we do have a little better internet connection these days, but before 2 years, if you think of transferring even a 1 TB of data to the cloud, you might have to think for several times. Now 1 TB of data is nothing. We all use 1 TB of hard disk. So you can just imagine how much amount of data these companies are going to have. So minimum in petabytes is something that the data which is to be transferred. So we can imagine how much time it's going to take even on this specific internet connection. So if there is a drop of the packets, it is going to lose the connection. It is in usage. Snowball is already in usage. It's been almost more than 1.5 years that Snowball is in the usage. So using Snowball addresses the common challenges with the large scale data transfers, including the high network cost, long transfer times, and the security concerns. Of course, so if you are going to transfer it over the internet, you need to pay heavy amount for the better internet connection. So you are going to actually incur a lot of cost. So rather than that, you can actually use the Snowball device, which is simple, fast, secure, and of course it involves a little cost, but it is very little when compared to what we're going to pay for the internet, the amount of time we have to wait for the data to get transferred. So all those things, if we keep aside, we will be able to achieve the solution better with a Snowball. So Snowball basically comes with a size of 80 TB, that is 80 terabytes. Snowball is available for all the regions currently. Snowball uses multiple layers of security designed to protect your data, including the tamper-resistant enclosures, 256-bit encryption, and an industry-standard trusted platform module designed to ensure both security and full chain of custody of your data. Now, this rugged suitcase, what we are seeing, this rugged suitcase, what we are seeing is pretty hard in the case. So even if it falls from certain set of floors, it still retains itself, as well as whatever data we are going to store inside this Snowball device. Everything is going to be encrypted as per the standards of AES 256. So using the AES 256 encryption methods, which is the one of the best in the market till date as a part of encryption techniques, automatically whatever data is being stored inside the Snowball device, they are going to employ this technique in order to protect the data. So as per the industry standards, Amazon is going to take care of all the data whenever it is being a part of this specific Snowball device. Now, once the data is put into the Snowball device, it is being sent to the Amazon data center, and from there the data is actually transferred to the specific region wherever you want it. After that, what happens to your Snowball device? So once the data transfer job has been processed and verified, it basically goes for the erasure process. So Amazon has got an erasure process in terms of the Snowball device. So it has to go through all the set of erasure processes. So once the data transfer job is done, they ask you to verify it back. So once we verify it, after that only the Amazon is going to perform a software erasure of the appliance, and complete disk zeroing of the Snowball device is done, and only then that specific Snowball device will be assigned to the next job for any other company. Now in Snowball we have different variants. So initially when they launched, it was just a Snowball, but later over the point of time when they realized that companies are really having a large amounts of data, so they have basically started giving the different versions in the Snowball. So we have a Snowball, Snowball Edge, and then the Snowmobile. So we learned about what is Snowball. So the next is Snowball Edge. So Snowball Edge is basically a device which comes with the compute capabilities as well, and it comes with a size of minimum 100 TB. So apart from a normal storage device, I can also do some compute capabilities, which means I can actually run a very small server inside the Snowball Edge itself. But what would be the use case in this part of getting a Snowball Edge? Now there are some certain places across the world where we do not have an internet connection, and you would specifically like to have a small server, or maybe let's say you have been there to do some survey, or you are there for a certain set of days and you want to get connected with some survey, or you're trying to work out something there. So you do not have any internet or way to get connected to your cloud servers. So how do we get started with it? So basically we have something called as the Snowball Edge, where I can have a device with 100 TB of data as well as with the little compute capabilities, which I can use it in the offline mode. So you can use Snowball Edge to move large amounts of data into and out of AWS as temporary storage for the local large data sets, uh, or to support the local workloads in the remote or the offline locations. Right? As I said, the most of the capabilities of the Snowball Edge in terms of compute is basically for the offline or the remote locations where we do not get internet. But that should be fine. We do not use Snowball Edge a lot, but it's just a extra added feature where in the inside the Snowball itself I will have option to use the compute capabilities. Snowball Edge connects to your existing applications and the infrastructure using the standard storage interfaces, streamlining the data transfer process and minimizing the setup and the integration. Snowball Edge can cluster together to form local storage tier and process your data on premises, helping ensure your applications continue to run even when they are not accessible to the cloud. Right, so you can also always keep a check on how this application is going to work through with the help of Snowball Edge. But as I just said, Snowball Edge is not much used across when compared to what Snowball, the normal Snowball is going to be. And now we finally have Snowmobile. Yes, a Snowmobile is really this big as you see in the diagram, which comes with a semi-trailer truck. So in case if you think you are a company like YouTube where you have got lots of data that you want to transfer it to the cloud, then you have to really think about a solution, something like Snowmobile. Now, if YouTube thinks of sending all the data to the cloud, of course, they're already on the cloud. But let's say if it was a third-party company which used to maintain all the data in its local data center, and if it wants to really send it to the cloud, so it really becomes very difficult, right? Because every day some millions or billions of people are going to upload the videos across onto the YouTube platform, and you can imagine the way the storage devices are going to grow in a YouTube. So if you have to really transfer so many videos to from your existing data center to the AWS cloud, you specifically need something like Snowmobile. So Snowmobile is basically exabyte scaling data. So currently we are using GBs. After GB we get TB, that is terabytes. So we have already using the hard disk of around 1 TB size, right? And after terabyte we get a petabyte, and after petabyte we basically get a exabyte. So you can just imagine how much data it is going to be. So it is basically a exabyte scale data transfer service to move extremely large amounts of data to the AWS. So you can transfer up to 100 petabytes per Snowmobile. So that is the capacity of 100 this Snowmobile. If you want to convert it to GB, you can just go down to the Google and just say yeah. So it says that is 1E plus 8. So even it has got a, I'll just put it in the terabytes. Yeah, that is 100,000 terabytes. So you can just imagine 1 terabyte is going to have around 1024 GB, right? So 100,000 terabytes of the data can be transferred at one single shot using this Snowmobile, which is a 45-foot long ruggedized shipping container pulled by a semi-trailer truck. Snowmobile makes it easy to move the massive volumes of the data to the cloud, including the video libraries, image repositories, or even a complete data center migration. Transferring the data with the Snowmobile is secure, fast, and very cost effective. Now you can imagine if companies like YouTube have to really transfer the data from their existing premises to the AWS cloud, it is really difficult. So they might use something like the Snowmobile, which makes it much more easier for them to transfer the data to the cloud. So that was all about the three different types of snowballs that we have. So however, this import export disk, which used to be a part of the one of the AWS service, is now deprecated. So if you go onto the AWS console and try to put here import export, it has been actually removed. And whenever you try to put in import export as well, it is going to show the snowball itself. The Snowball is basically a replacement for the import-export device because it really becomes a tedious job for any existing company to use their own hard disk and send the data to the AWS cloud. So any questions or queries here from any one of you on the Snowball part? Okay, so before we close the session, I would just like to give you one small overview that you guys have to download a tool that is about command line interface. So you guys can go down to the Google and just type Amazon CLI download. So we are tomorrow going to learn how to configure the command line interface so that we will be able to connect to our S3 buckets, or just we can say that we are going to connect to our AWS account using the command line interface. So just go ahead and download this command line interface, which is actually available as a software. So if you are already using a Windows or MacBook, you would specifically just need to go ahead and download the software. So if you are at a Mac or Linux, you need to use this command pip install AWS CLI, but for that you need to have Python in your Mac or Linux, and then you will be able to use directly this command to download it. Or if you already have a Windows laptop or a computer, just go ahead, depending upon your 64-bit or 32-bit computer, just download the installer and install this specific command line interface. So we are going to get connected to our AWS using this command line interface. So I'll be straight away able to issue the commands like this. So if I say AWS EC2 describe instances, so specifically it's going to show me what all virtual servers are existing in my AWS account. So if I say AWS S3 LS, it is basically going to show me what all buckets are there in my S3 account. So we are going to learn about how to use those commands as well, and we are also going to see how to install it. So just keep a copy of downloaded in your computers. So that was all about for the session today. Any questions or queries before we close the session? Snowball, practically to do a lab, we need to have a Snowball device to be ordered, but I am not sure. I'll just check out if there is any specific case in my company. If they are using a Snowball, I'll just try to get an update from them, because in order to get started with a Snowball, you need to really have a Snowball practically available with you on how to get connected. It is just that you need to first order a Snowball device. You can just go down to AWS console here and then type on Snowball. Specifically, we have to first go and create a job in this. There are 6 steps with the way we are going to get connected. First is plan your job. So what kind of data would you like to do? So are you trying to import the data from your existing data center to the cloud? Or if you are trying to export the data from the cloud, you can also do it. So if you think you have a lot of data in the cloud and you also want to put it up in your existing data center, right? So you can also use this export. And if you just want to go for the local storage, you can also go for that. So first you have to decide what kind of job you want to get through, and then I'll just click next. Here I'll have to give my shipping details, where this device has to be sent. And then we have certain more steps here on giving the job details, setting up the security for this device, and setting up the notifications. So everything is going to be set up before the device is being sent across to my location. So after that only I'll be able to get started with it. So all the security features, first we have to set it up, and using this specific creating a job, and then then only the Amazon is going to ship down that snowball device to my location. Okay then guys, so we'll meet back tomorrow again in the morning at the same time to explore the next part of our AWS course. So have a great day. Until then, bye.